Hey there, welcome to episode 34 of the No Reservations podcast. This one is titled Summer Sizzle. I do not come up with these, I just read them and then I start talking about them. So, summer is here, I'm assuming, if this episode is out. And there are a lot of things I can say about this. Now, first off, of course, if you have outdoor seating, this is where you make hay. As you probably know, I hope you know, and you don't need me to tell you that. But you can really, really capitalize on making hay by doing this correctly with some high profit margin, fun, summer type drinks, dishes, etc., etc. But that's the easy part to talk about. So I'm going to hold off on that and just for just a second, because I want to speak to those of you who aren't lucky enough, shall we say, to have outdoor seating, or maybe it's very limited. But I don't want to forget about you. Like, that's a thing. I get it. In my restaurant, actually in both of them, but in Balboa, we went through hell to get outdoor seating. We eventually did, but the first few years we did not have it. So we really had to try and do the best that we could. And the first thing we did is we blew out the entire front of the restaurant. So of course we were in this long brick building in Boston, in the Back Bay, and blew out the entire front, which were like just big, what do they call those? Those big windows. I can't think of the name. And then put in sliding doors. So what we were, and maybe this is something that would work for you or not. So if you're not allowed for whatever reason to have outdoor seating, maybe you can create either more windows or turn your windows just into kind of doors that can open up, if that makes sense for you, and almost have that outdoor feel. Bring tables to the front, something like that, just to get the fresh air in, and kind of feel like outdoor. So that's not cheap, of course, to blow out the front of your restaurant, but that is what we ended up doing while we were waiting for all of the permits we had to get from the city of Boston to then build this big patio and then be able to have seating out there, etc. So if you're a restaurant that doesn't have the outdoor seating, but maybe you have a wait, or you could have a wait, but there's really no place for people to be waiting for a table to come available. Maybe there's a way that you can create a nice little outdoor environment. Maybe it's just a couple of benches. So I would definitely recommend some greenery, some potted plants, a little bit of landscaping to make it enticing to be out there, and then figure out what you could do in terms of either, I'm kind of torn on this. It's nice to be able to offer something complimentary. Sometimes it makes sense to do that, whether it's just a water station or you have someone with a free moment. Maybe it's the host, a busser who can actually go out there and give people water, show them that you care, show them that you see them. There's, they have to wait, but make them as comfortable as you can. We're talking about summer. It could be hot, so a nice glass, or, I hate plastic, but if you're outside, you might have to deal with some type of or maybe go to acrylic cups, of ice water could be something simple and cheap enough to do, and just but the thought goes a million miles. So I recommend that to getting them their first cocktail. I'm not saying do that for free if that's legal for you to do, for them to hold a drink, and if it's borderline, then maybe you just apologize later for that type of thing. But the whole point is to make sure that if you want people to wait, but they tend not to, because the way it's set up, there's just no room to stand, or people don't want to just stand out in a busy street or whatever it is. Try and figure out a way to make it more enticing, that they would be willing to wait 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe even 45 minutes for one of your indoor tables. So just think of it in terms of that way, especially here in New England, in the Northeast. When the nicer weather comes around, people take advantage of it. They want to be outside as much as possible. So just think about what would entice you to want to stay somewhere and be outside as nice as possible. So that's pretty much what you can do. The low-hanging fruit there in terms of getting some sales. One, before I'd even go to sales, is just make sure people want to wait and that they're seeing that they're taken care of. Get them just some ice water to start, whatever else it is that you could possibly sell them would also be great. Maybe I mean, maybe you could do popcorn or a bag of chips. Now, this is what you would charge them for. And I'm not talking about Lay's bag of chips. I'm thinking of a restaurant that's local to me that makes their own during like the happy hour time frame that are to die for. So maybe something like that people talk about, it makes them comfortable, makes them want to come back. It just basically endears you to them. That's what we're trying to do in terms of hospitality there. All right. So we talked a little, very briefly, landscaping is super, super important when it comes to having people sit outside. Nobody wants to sit in uncomfortable, cheap plastic chairs that you can buy at Job Lot for $9.99. And then you're going to charge them $20 for a meal. Like, no, nobody wants to sit in that. You need to take this. This is something that I would recommend investing in. And it may or may not have to be that expensive, but I think it's extremely important to be cognizant of if someone's going to sit outside, and if you happen to be, let's say, on a busy road, that you have to make it as enticing and as comfortable as possible. And getting some large, so here, talk about Job Lot, getting some of those large, heavy planter containers. And maybe this is something you could do yourself, or maybe you just have a friend or a family member or a coworker or someone that likes to do this type of thing. You can go get some tall trees that can be planted, or maybe it's just flowers that you can plant, and just make sure you maintain them if you do that. This does not have to be necessarily expensive, but it can go a long way because one, it adds to the ambiance. Two, it shows that you care, that you're being thoughtful. So don't overlook the visual aspect of your outdoor space. So I just want to say that. So that's not really going, well, I hesitate to say it won't make you money because I think it actually will. I think more people will be apt to come back to you if they know they have a nice place to sit in versus just, some plastic chairs and a table on a sidewalk. So there needs to be some thought that goes in there. Of course, if it makes sense to have some type of side station, server station out there, you want to think about that. That's not expensive to do. I mean, I can go to Restaurant Depot and get one of those rollaway carts, but I bet there's other, you can go to Wayfair and probably find something that you could do there with just some bus tins or bus tubs, that you could put out there, because you don't want the people outside who are sitting outside suffering from lack of service because of the functionality of it. So that all that needs to be thought out. Okay, so there's that. The functionality, it makes sense. You have it staffed, etc. Now let's talk about some money-making things other than the obvious of more seats to fill. But there's so much you can offer in the summer and that are such great money makers. The first thing that comes to mind, because usually it's the first thing people order, which are drinks, right, is anything that can be sold in a pitcher. I'm going to say a glass pitcher. Glass is great. It can also be a little bit more expensive in break, but they make amazing clear acrylic pitchers that look like glass. They're not expensive. You can get them on Amazon. I bought a few for my house and for parties I've had at my house. People always compliment on them. They're always surprised they're acrylic. They look like glass, like I said. And just creating non-alcoholic and alcoholic drinks in these pitchers. They will sell themselves if they're clear and people can see what's in them. So we're talking about red sangria, we're talking about pink lemonade, any type of refresher. So I think Starbucks kind of started their whole refresher, which is like lemonade, soda water, could be dragon fruit puree, could be frozen strawberries. They do a few different ones. And you probably know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go to Starbucks refresher, but now you can go to Dunkin' Donuts, who also offer refreshers. So it's a thing. And I know it's definitely a thing for kids. Love that. Especially the younger kids love that. So maybe you find a smaller pitcher, nice clear acrylic pitcher, where you're doing like a pitcher of pink lemonade refreshers that if you have two kids, they can go and they can share a pitcher. It basically fills 2 to 4 glasses. They'll be tickled pink, pardon the pun there. And you could probably charge, the parents are going to do the math in their head, right? So if you already charge $3.50 for a soda, let's say, and then you're going to serve them a pitcher that gives them 3 drinks, you probably have to charge like around $10. They might pay a tiny bit more for the pitcher because the kids think it's the coolest thing. They get to pour their own drink. The visualness is the seller as it goes through the dining room. I know I've talked about this before when it comes to being visual with the guests. Other tables there with kids will be pointing, saying, I want whatever that is. So that's And there's so many colors. You could even do like um, gummies, like candies, like sharks. There's one I was researching to put in my snack shack this summer, this shark attack drink, and it's on TikTok too. So I think any kid on TikTok is going to know what it is. So it's almost like this is non-alcoholic. It could be alcoholic, but this one's non-alcoholic blue curacao drink, and you drip some grenadine so it looks like blood in the water, and then you put a few gummy sharks in it. It's fun, it's cute, it's inexpensive, but you can charge more for it because the kids are going to flip out. It makes them happy. The parents can, smile and relax. It's just a win-win. And there's a million different variations that you could do when it comes to these refreshers to make money. And that's just the kids. I think you can also certainly do it for adults. The mocktail craze, if you will, for lack of a better word, is not going anywhere. I actually saw something on a news feed the other day that I think it was the Bronx or somewhere in New York. Someone opened the first mocktail bar, which I thought I would be the first to open that. Or I don't know if it's the first, but it's getting some recognition right now. I love that idea. I don't think it's going anywhere. So you can have a whole menu. You could create a separate menu. By the way, we have these templates. I think I've mentioned before on our profitfirstrestaurants.com website. You have a separate menu that you just highlight all the different pitchers. Maybe it's a pitcher night, and maybe on the slow nights you could say half off of pitchers, and the pitchers can be here's all our non-alcoholic. And again, between the frozen fruits that you can get that you can put in there to the alcoholic pitchers of mojitos, sangria. Oh geez, there's just so many. Watermelon pure. I'm just thinking like all the colors of the rainbow that you can use in making these both non-alcoholic and alcoholic drinks that will sell themselves just because of the visual of it. Maybe even get some new, if necessary, glassware to kind of be served with. Oh, you could get acrylic wine glasses. I had to get them to go by my pool and give that to the kids. I don't know how many parents would appreciate that. I think it would be adorable to give that to my kids with their pitcher, like drinking out of wine glasses. I think the kids will not stop talking about your place if you do that. I think that's a really cute idea. So that's all drinking. Now, if you think about it, when people want to eat outside, not everyone, but I'd say a lot of people, there's sort of a celebratory mood around it. Like finally, like, oh, we get to sit outside a few months out of the year, at least again in the New England, the colder areas. It's so nice to finally be outside. There's a celebratory energy going on that maybe you focus a little bit more on either small plates or, or sharing plates, where you could create something like this is meant for two, or maybe have a separate menu. Like, oh, if you just want to share a few things. So maybe you make them bigger or use just bigger plates meant for sharing. But you can charge more because it looks bigger. The math in the consumer's head might be like, oh, well, this appetizer is $18, but 9 and 9, we each, instead we would have normally ordered one each, but now this makes sense to me. We're getting a deal. So if you can charge $18 for a plate to say a fried calamari, but not necessarily give more than you would on a single portion, maybe a little bit more. I mean, you got to be cognizant of it, but you just serve it on a bigger plate so it looks like more. That's profit margin, right? So you're charging more than you would for an individual plate of calamari, but just using a different plate or a different styling method and maybe just another small handful of it on there so it looks like it's meant for sharing. But add a bunch more bucks to that. That's gross profit margin. So that's what I mean by making hay when the opportunity presents itself. And with summertime here or coming, depending on when you listen to this, these are some great opportunities. So not to mention all of the refresher type drinks you're going to be offering. I recommend pitchers and fun cups to go with the pitchers for sharing. Sharing plates of appetizers could be something that's already off your menu, or maybe you create something that's not on your menu that you're getting a special on, and you can make really good money off of those that are sharing. To entrees. To the entrees I can't really talk about because that's very concept driven. So I'll let you figure out how you're going to do the entrees, and certainly how you can figure out doing the promotions. But that's another episode. There's so many different promotions you could do. But then we can come back to the desserts. Summer fruit, as I think of strawberries with whipped cream, strawberries dipped in chocolate. Almost anything dipped in chocolate or with cream when it comes to, you could really kind of hand sell, I'd say, a refreshing type of dessert because it's summer and that's what people think of, especially if they want to linger because the weather's so nice that day or that night, or they don't really want to get up and there's still some sangria left in their pitcher. And, so maybe put some thought into a special dessert menu, which would lend itself to what's selling well for drinks, appetizers, and entrees that you can get people to stay and if you want them to stay and get desserts. And then that leads me to the final point, which is if you don't want them to stay or they don't want to stay because, let's face it, none of us have any attention spans or want to commit to sitting for 2.5 hours. What can you sell them on the way out? Meaning, I know that during Christmas time, I talk about selling like Christmas cookies or a Christmas dessert that's easy to package up and put in a bag with a bow on it. And they're tickled pink because when they're hungry an hour later, they get something to eat. I love that idea. But what could that translate to in the summertime? I'm wondering. And I don't really know the answer right now, but I know there's got to be something, maybe something with like those crystal like sugar sticks, something like candy oriented, maybe something that's easy you could throw in your purse as well. Probably should have come to this episode a little bit more prepared, but I'm just thinking, what could you sell that has that visual quality for somebody that knows that they want dessert, but they're too full at the moment, or they want to get up and walk around, they want to leave, that you could offer and say, oh, you can get one of these to go, just tack that on the bill, I'll bring it right over, and they walk out with it, and it's summertime. And what would that look like? So I think there's a million things from biscotti, which could go either way. I don't think dried fruits. I don't know how you would do fresh fruit either. So more of a candy thing, something that could kind of last and again be thrown in somebody's purse and not make a mess. But those are great selling points right there. So I love it all. I think there's so many things you can do. I'm heavy on using pictures and creating all kinds of fun, colorful drinks. I think not only are there high profit margins that you can make there, they sell themselves across the dining room and people will talk about them. They're great to post on Instagram, which of course I hope you're doing every single night in your restaurant, taking pictures of something, videos of behind the scenes, videos of whatever, and posting. You can never post enough when it comes to the restaurants, but this stuff is just literally going to be the icing on the cake. So, all right, that is it. I'm going to wrap up this summer sizzle portion. I may be back with some more tips as I think about them, but I like to keep these under 20 minutes. So there you go. Thank you so much again for listening. And as usual, please like, share, and like this podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's super helpful to us. And if you need anything, you can find us at Profit First, the number 4 restaurants.com. That's Profit First for restaurants.com. See you on the next one.